Consistent self-improvement, everybody. You are now listening to American gypC Podcast. I am your host, Classic, and I am here with my co-host,
gypC, and today we have Dan McCrory. He is the author of several books, including his latest one, You Will Forever Be My Always. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thanks.
Welcome. It's a pleasure having you.
I'm glad to be here. Anytime I get a chance to talk about my favorite things, which are my books, I'll do it.
So before we get into your books, can you tell us a little bit about like where you're from and what led up to you writing the books that you have?
Well, I am from LA, but as I mentioned, it took me 20 years to get home. I lived in Texas for 10 years and Colorado for 10 years, and then I came back here, and I've been here ever since. And I've always been a writer. I wrote my first story when I was 11. The teacher read it to the class, and I was hooked.
Okay. And that's when you're writing visions.
That's when I started writing. But it wasn't until I retired from AT&T 11 years ago that I said, well, it's time to do what I have always wanted to do, and I started writing books.
So when you left Los Angeles and went to Texas, what is it like growing up in Texas?
I was in a small town of 4,500 people. I lived literally on the wrong side of the tracks, and I got beat up a lot. And as soon as I got a chance to move to Colorado and live with my grandmother and go to high school, and with lots more opportunities, I jumped.
Okay. So what about Colorado? Tell us about the switch from Texas to Colorado. It was, you say you jumped after that, so it must have been an amazing move for you.
Yeah, when I was 15, that's when I moved, and I realized I get to start my life all over again. So I got to pick who my friends were, and I would just go up to somebody in school and say, hey, let's hang out. And it was amazing that I went back for a high school reunion a few years ago, and I suddenly realized that all my friends followed me. I was like the one that brought everybody together. And I had never realized that when I was growing up. But I got tired of shoveling snow in order to go to work, and said this is kind of counterproductive. So I decided to move back to L.A.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to live in Minnesota, so
yeah.
After that, I'm like, anywhere where it doesn't snow, that's where I want to be.
Well, it's another way of saying, if I can conquer this, I can conquer anything, right?
Basically, yeah.
So for our listeners and our viewers, we are in downtown L.A. This is where we're recording. So back here in L.A., how long have you been back in L.A. now?
Since 1980.
1980. So how much has downtown L.A. or L.A. in general changed since?
Downtown used to be a ghost town. Nobody stayed here after dark. They just abandoned the inner city to go out to the suburbs, and that's where everybody lived. And I'm glad to see that some people, city leaders, had a greater vision for downtown L.A., and now we've got the Staples. I guess it's not called Staples Center anymore. It's now called
Crypto.com.
There you go. It's a strange name. Sounds like something out of 1984, But I'm glad to see that there's breweries. There's all sorts of things you can do downtown now after dark, and I really appreciate that. And the suburbs haven't gotten any better, though, so I think we're going to have to work on those next.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the homeless seem to be moving out there in big droves, and we have to do something to help those people. And I ran for city council myself back in '94 after the Northridge earthquake, because I saw how people came together and helped each other. Some guy saw my union bumper sticker on my car, and he came up to the apartment and he said, "Is that your bumper sticker?" And I said, "Yes." He says, I'm a union brother. I'm here to help." So
you say, so what is the union bumper sticker? I'm not familiar with that.
It was just a bumper sticker that said something like Communication Workers of America, which was my union at the time. And union helping union, that's a big thing that goes way back. So
the Northridge earthquake, did you feel that?
1994, yeah. My building was red tagged. My girlfriend at the time and our dog, I took them to work with me because I was supposed to start vacation that day. It was Martin Luther King Day. And when I got to work, nobody else was there. So I had to make sure that we didn't lose phone service from the San Fernando Valley to the rest of LA and the rest of the world. So there'd be aftershocks, and I'd dive under the desk for a while. I'd come out and fix something and go back onto the desk.
This was during your time when working at AT&T?
Yeah, this was 1994.
Wow.
How bad was the shock down here? Because I know it was up north in San Francisco.
It was, San Francisco.
Or was it?
Major.
Wait, Northridge.
They had theirs right before ours.
Okay. That's the one I was thinking of, I think.
Yeah, this one, there were pockets. Sherman Oaks was wiped out pretty much. And they called it the Northridge earthquake because that was the epicenter, and a lot of people lost their homes there. But in my building in Sherman Oaks, we were on the 3rd floor, and the 1st floor was just pancaked. And they put a ride tag on the building. I went to work, like I said, worked all day. I never saw the sun on that day. Came home. My girlfriend said, there's been a fireman by. He says, clear out of the building. I said, hell with that. I'm too tired. I'm going to bed. And just then there was a knock on the door, and it was them again saying we had to leave. So we spent the night in the back of my truck.
Wow.
We haven't really felt, we've only been here a few years, and felt maybe like what's that, a 6 point something? It wasn't too bad.
Much at all, yeah.
Scared me
it's
a
not like it
little
really
bit.
knocked anything over, but we don't really have that type of experience with earthquakes, so it's something new coming from the south.
To tell you the truth, they're happening all the time, but they're so
you
low
don't.
that you don't even feel them.
I feel like I may feel them sometime, but just feel like maybe the wind is blowing and the building is just doing a little tremor.
A lot of these tall buildings now are built on rockers. They're trying to absorb this shock. So you may be living in one of those because this looks like a fairly new building.
Well, no, I don't think this building is too new.
Oh, okay.
Let's just hope.
Yeah, but hopefully it's built well enough. But yeah, I'm not too sure. I wouldn't say it's not as new as the one across the street.
Gotcha.
So, what inspired you to write the book? Is that your first book? I mean, I know you written.
This book,
that's your latest one, right?
That's my latest.
Yeah.
Well, I was in lockdown like everybody else, and I'd been in a lot of stores and stuff and seen this slogan, "You will forever be my always." And I said, "What does that even mean?" So I decided, I know, I'll write a book and I'll define it for myself. And I did. And a lot of people think it's misleading because it sounds so gentle and romantic. It's actually about some pretty rough sex in the beginning. And but I do that to show how the guy's transformed by the fact that he gets Parkinson's disease, which I also have.
Okay.
So is it inspired by your story a little bit, or
a little bit?
It's mostly fiction. Okay.
But yeah, it's 90% fiction. There's one guy in it who is a real person, and that's my friend Brahim, who lives in Morocco. He insists that I use his name.
Okay. You mentioned Morocco. How's that?
How's that fit in?
Well, like, what brought you to Morocco? How does that fit in the whole?
Oh, well, some friends wanted to go and visit Spain, Portugal, and then drop down to Morocco for a few days, and they ended up canceling at the last minute. So my wife and I said, we don't need to go to Portugal and Spain. We'll do that some other time. Let's go to Morocco. And we fell in love with it. We thought Thailand was exotic. Morocco blows that away. Plus, they hadn't seen many Americans in the last few decades, I guess because we're so afraid of any country that's predominantly Muslim. And they're 97% Muslim. But those people were so nice, and they would give you literally the shirt off their back. And I just thought it would fit into the book because my main character, who's a jerk, as you can already tell, finds out he has Parkinson's, but he's fooled around on his wife for years, and he's not been very nice to his friends either. And he tells everybody, I've got Parkinson's, I'm dying, because he thought that's what it meant. And everybody just blows him off. So he ends up in Thailand, and he talks to a Catholic priest, and he talks to a Buddhist monk, and he says, how can I make up for all the bad things I've done during my life? And they come up with solutions, and he says, no, I can't do that. That would take too long. And so he goes to Morocco because his wife's not ready to have him come home yet. And so he talks to his friend who's a devout Muslim, and he asks him what he can do. And then he also meets some Jewish people at a Muslim funeral. And he says, what can I do? And nobody seems to have an answer for him. So he decides that what he's going to do, he's going to go back and to the town he grew up in, Texas, and go on an apology tour.
It's kind of mixing a lot of different cultures together and religions.
I drove my narrator crazy when I did the Audible book because I had to do all these accents, all these different phrases in different languages. And I think by the end he was ready to kill me.
So it's translated into several languages?
No, there's Assalamu alaikum, which Muslim people say. And then there was a traditional, I won't even try it, way of saying, I'm sorry you lost a loved one. That's in Yiddish. Then there's people talking in Berber, which is an indigenous language in Morocco, and French. There's a poem that this guy is supposed to read. He says, I can't read French. So the guy reads it to him and then translates. So a little bit of everything for everybody.
Yeah.
Can
you educate us a little bit on Parkinson's disease?
It starts out, and I try to be true to it in the book. It starts out as what they call a resting tremor. I would look down and I'd see my thumb doing this, shaking. I'd wonder what's causing that. So I Googled it, and it sounded like Parkinson's. So I have a friend who's a chiropractor, and he said, go ask your doctor. And my doctor says, that's not Parkinson's. So my friend said, ask for a second opinion. So I went to another general practitioner. He said, no, that's not Parkinson's. Went back to my friend, and I said, I guess I don't have Parkinson's. He said, ask for a neurologist. So then I went to a neurologist, and within 10 minutes she said, yes, you've got it. Because one side's slower than the other side and stiffer, and that's kind of how it starts out. And eventually, if you don't exercise and keep everything moving, you get stiff, really stiff, to the point where, as I say in the book, if you're like that and you try walking across the street and you get hit by a truck, are your friends going to say, oh, he died of Parkinson's? Or are they going to say, he got hit by a truck?
I would hope they'd say he got hit by a truck, but,
But it was because he was slowed down by his disease.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that works with downtown L.A.
Yeah, because you got to sprint.
Well, even just it's not even necessarily about that. People walk out into traffic, period.
But a lot of people are saying they know how Parkinson's. Alan Alda, the actor, Linda Ronstadt, Neil Diamond, and Robin Williams had a form of it, and that's why he committed suicide.
Really?
So is it a neurological disease?
Yeah, it's a neurological disease. There's like the sheath that wires come in when you're wiring up your stereo or whatever. Not that anybody does that anymore, but the coating on the wires start to wear off, and then you get a lot of shorts, just like in electricity, and it messes with your memory. Parkinson's, another early symptom is something they call tip of the tongue syndrome, where you're trying to find the word, and you would think it would be the real difficult words that you had to learn in college, but no, it's the simple words. I was trying to talk about a friend to my wife the other night, and for the life of me, I couldn't remember his name, and I had just seen him a couple hours before.
Wow.
So it's annoying as hell.
How long ago did you find that out, and how has that changed your life?
I was diagnosed in 2013, and I've done everything not to have it mess with my life. But at some point, as you can tell, my voice does weird things on me. I run out of air before I run out of sentence, and that's partly my asthma, and the other part is the Parkinson's, because it messes with your vocal cords, and that's why Linda Ronstadt won't ever sing again.
Okay. Thank you for educating us on that.
Oh, yeah. In fact, during the month of April, which is Parkinson's Awareness Month, if I'm doing any readings or things like that, I will have literature with me to pass along to people.
Okay. So clearly it doesn't, stop you from driving necessarily.
Not yet.
Not yet.
It probably will.
And I was curious about that. Is there, as far as a longevity with that they kind of give you on how long you can expect to drive, or?
No, because it's such an individualized disease. Everybody's symptoms may progress a little bit differently, and I may be okay for 10 years and all of a sudden get some facet of it that's really bad, like dementia or whatever. All that's in the book. There's a problem with balance where you fall a lot, things like that, and break a bone or a hip. So those are the kinds of things I have to watch out for down the line. Okay. But that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, and people can't get around the sex part of it.
So it's a rated R book.
Yeah, or maybe even hard R.
Gotcha. Okay. And you do have, you say, the Audible as well?
Yeah, it's just came out last week, and like I said, the guy's hoping to win some awards from it because he works so damn hard on it.
So this is your second book.
Yep.
Your first book. Can you tell us about your first book?
Yeah, my second book took me only 4 months. This one took me 4 years, and this one is called Capitalism Killed the Middle Class, 25 Ways the System is Rigged Against You.
Okay. Can you educate us or talk a little bit towards that?
There's a couple of things in here that I always mention to people because I'm surprised at how many people don't know about these things. Have you ever heard of the Powell Memo or the Powell Manifesto?
I don't think I have.
No.
Lewis F. Powell was a lawyer, and his claim to fame before he came up with this was he argued in front of the Supreme Court that smoking was not addicting. So we can already tell what kind of guy he's going to be. Then he was talking to a friend of his who was in the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. He said, you know what? This was 1971. He says, we're tired of these hippies and these vets coming back and saying the only reason we're still in Vietnam is because we're making all sorts of money, which happened to be true. And he said, but we need to convince our business partners that this is not good for business. So the guy wrote up a 19-page memo where he laid out clearly and distinctly how to take over the conversation, chase off the hippies and the vets, and make capitalism the hero again. So, Nixon was so impressed with him, he appointed him to the Supreme Court. And Reagan made copies of the memo and gave it to all of his members of his cabinet. And even Trump liked it. Every Republican president has latched on to it. And it's been 40 years now, and I know it's working because I had a handyman come to the house a couple of months ago, and one of the first things he said was, unions have ruined this country. And I thought, where are we to get an idea like that? And it's the Powell Memo. It's still living and haunting us. There's this organization called ALEC that was formed by businesses after this came out. ALEC is the American Legislative Exchange Council. What they'll do is they'll write a template for a law that they want passed to help out their business buddies. Mm-hmm. And then they'll find somebody like in California who's pro-business and say, can you put your name on this and run with this? Excuse me. And the person will do that. And then he'll gather his friends. And before you know it, it's a law in California. Then they'll move on to Nevada and get the law passed there. And pretty soon it's a federal law. So that's one of the ways that they've robbed us of our rights. What I've come up with is something I'm calling the McCrory Manifesto because nobody else is talking about it, so I might as well put my name on it. And what I said is we should gut that document, gut it completely, take out the word capitalism, put in maybe democratic socialist or something like that, and take out business and put in workers or the people, and we could easily win that conversation back because it means going to the schools, the colleges, and talking about our issues. And if it works right, 40 years from now, people will be saying, well, what do working people want? Instead of what do the banks want or things like that. So I thought that was a really important consideration. And I'm pushing that at the highest levels of the union movement that I can.
It's quite the question when you get asked, what do working people want, at least nowadays, because it's hard to know really kind of even what you can look at one of the businesses and it says now hiring, but then they're still saying that people don't want to work or something, and it gets pretty confusing.
And they also, even your friends will say, those guys are greedy. That's the only reason they're on strike. And where do you think they learned that from? From business. So another thing I found in my research on the book, and it started out as a memoir. It was just going to be about my time as a union president and the things that I had seen when I was in the union movement, like the air traffic controller debacle and all that. But I decided, if I just make this a memoir and nobody knows me, who's going to buy it? So what I did was I made a part memoir, part tale of caution, I guess, cautionary tale, and part history lesson. So it talks about the roots of the labor movement being in socialism, which is true, and a lot of people deny that now. But one of the other things I found when I was investigating the whole link to the military was this Project 1033. It was originally started to fight the war on drugs. They say that they told the Department of Defense was told, if you have a surplus guns, any equipment of any kind, you must offer it to local law enforcement at bargain basement prices. So LA Unified School District has 3 grenade launchers, 61 AR-15 rifles, and it doesn't come with instructions.
Why would they have that?
The LA County Sheriff's Department bought 50 pairs of snowshoes.
That's very odd.
They're doing up in Big Bear for the summer.
Yeah, that's where the next crime spree is going to be.
Yeah.
The school having grenade launchers.
Yeah, it's a scary thought, isn't it?
Yeah. Like, why would you even?
So what is going on with the politics of like the homelessness and the school system stuff here in LA or in Southern California?
Well, the homeless situation, there's going to be a lot of things on the upcoming ballot in June on how to handle homelessness. One of the things that the city has been able to do is they go in and buy old hotels, fix them up, and then move some of the homeless in. I'll tell you, a lot of people became homeless after the Northridge earthquake because they didn't want to go back into any kind of building, thinking that it might collapse on them. But the ones that are out there now are, some of them are show you the vestiges of what Reagan did when he was governor, because he closed all the mental hospitals. He said it's inhumane to put these people in mental hospital and forget about them, but that wasn't what was happening. In California, they had pretty good care, but so all of a sudden those people were released out into the streets, and you still see some of them, but there's a whole new crop, and I guess if I was homeless, California is where I'd want to be.
Yeah, you can't really freeze to death
exactly,
compared to
LA, Minnesota.
Yeah, DC. And
I've seen, like, in the short time we've been here, I've seen a lot of, like, politicians or people in government have ideas or say they're going to change homelessness or that being one of their priorities, but I don't know if it has changed. In my view, what do you think are some of the challenges with trying to fix homelessness in LA?
Well, the fact that LA is one of the most expensive places in the country to live doesn't help any. It's not like the Bay Area, though. The Bay Area, we pale in comparison to the rates that they pay up there. But that's one of the things. We need to subsidize housing. George Carlin once said a long time ago that they should shut down all the golf courses because it's just a bunch of rich old white men playing golf and make that homes for the homeless there. I don't think the idea went over too well.
Yeah, they wouldn't. They don't like that one.
No, so, but I've got friends. There's a Coalition for Economic Survival. A friend of mine, Larry Gross, runs that. He's run it for years, and he says if we can keep the lobbyists out of Sacramento or even downtown LA, then we have a fighting chance to get some real progressive laws put into place to protect those people and get them off the streets. because they don't want to be there. We don't want them to be there. So, but we have to come up with some humane way to help get them off the street. In my book, one of the chapters in the capitalism book is called Homelessness and Housing and Homelessness. And I talked to a friend of mine who was homeless at the time. It was his third time to be homeless, and he opened my eyes on a lot of things. He said one of the things you do when you first become homeless is you put all your stuff into storage, thinking this is only going to be a temporary thing, and I'll come and get my stuff later. And then when they finally lose all that stuff is when it hits them really hard that I'm really, really homeless now.
What percentage would you say is mentally ill, just can't afford to pay a place, and just insist, just kind of knucklehead, more like just a drug addict? Or
I knew you were going to go there, classic.
Yeah, there's a separation between, I could say mentally ill and, a drug addiction.
Oh yeah, there's a definite big difference. And one of the things that seems to be working is in a lot of these places, they're also putting right over upstairs or right close to the place where they're housing them, they're putting in a one-stop shop for benefits that you can qualify for, like the chip for kids to have food. That's one thing they're doing. They're putting all those in right next to the place so that the services that they need are right there when they need them. And that's a brilliant idea. And I see more of that happening. And I think that there's a serious effort in this town to do something about this problem. And I've been to Republican little enclaves that talk about, the problem is those people are stealing from us and ruining our property values and all this. They're not even looking at it in a humane way. And that's what we have to do is realize that those people are humans, and they were once prosperous and had families and all this, and all they want is to get back to something that we call normal.
If you could put a price tag on the solution.
Oh, geez.
Let's just say for downtown LA. We won't even have to say for Venice or not even for San Francisco, just for this area, just for Skid Row. If that was actually a price tag on the solution to
millions and millions. Unfortunately, a lot of the there's a company called Blackstone that owns most of the housing market that's out there for rentals. And they will do anything to make sure that that's not subsidized, that they make a decent buck on that. And a lot of people paint it as some doctor retired and he bought an extra house so he could make some rental cash, some income. And it turned out that it's not really that. It's this company, this large mega corporation that is buying all these houses up and they're asking a pretty penny for them. So if we can change some of the laws, there's something up in Sacramento they've been fighting for years called the, I think it's Costa Hawkins. Jim Costa is a Democrat, and Hawkins, I don't even remember who Hawkins was, because this was passed back in the 70s, where they said that you couldn't make you couldn't go into a city and make most of the housing Section 8 or whatever, that you could only have a small percentage be housing for the poor. Because, of course, that would change the property values. And every time that my friend Larry goes up to Sacramento to fight this, he has been gravely disappointed because they're fighting so hard to make sure that the corporations stay on top and they don't care about these people. So it's a sad state of affairs in Los Angeles and in California in general, and I hope it changes someday soon.
Yeah, hopefully. We've seen the shuffle around since we've been here over the past 4 years, just in this area, and it's hard to figure out. Yeah, we haven't seen.
Yeah, I ran for a state assembly in San Fernando Valley twice, 2008 and 2013. And at one debate that we did, this guy who was head of the Democratic Party at the time said, well, what are you going to do if this, and he said about the homeless situation. He also talked about some other situation that would hurt people. He said, where do you decide? And I said, so you're going to make me kill my brother to save my sister? That's not right. I said, there's got to be a way around that. He said, those are kind of tough decisions that they make every day in Sacramento.
Yeah. Let's say that a group of rich guys woke up and were feeling good one day, and let's say, hey, we're going to create this price tag to move some things around. Who would that disturb if an individual group of people were to say, all right, we're going to take our pocket profit and try to move towards, handling this problem? What would even be the steps if, let's say, you just had that kind of money and you say, all right, I want to go at this independently and see if I can make a change somewhere? How would that work?
Well, there are people that are doing that, very limited in scope and number, but there's different ways of doing it. If you do it the wrong way, then you end up with a lot of people who are dependent on that money coming in, and all of a sudden it gets cut off because he's moved on to another project or whatever. So you have to find a way to make it where you put seed money in and it becomes self-funding after a while. And there's different ways to do that, and believe me, richer people than me know how to do that. And that's what it requires. It requires a plan and the right amount of seed money to make it thrive rather than die after he's moved on to some other project.
Are there a lot of shelters out here?
Yes, there are a lot of shelters. If you're a single man, you're not as lucky as because a lot of them are geared to women and families.
Yeah,
and that's a good thing because those are the most vulnerable people that you need to get off the street. Yeah. When I was in college, I decided to do something, a little video about the homeless, and this friend and I went down to Skid Row, and this woman walked up to us, and she was acting all crazy and everything. I thought, wow, is she going to attack us or talk to us? And she sat down, and all of a sudden, she became a regular person. Yeah. And she said, you have to do that, or people are going to rape you or beat you up, all those kinds of things. So for women, it's really tough.
Interesting.
Yeah, I didn't look at it like that, but I guess, yeah.
Because I always thought also even the solution would be a combination of not just providing shelter, but you have to have like some way to help them transition, right?
Right, those services I was talking about.
Yeah. Whether it's getting a job, getting clothes to go interview, and having connections with different companies that will help, get people back on their feet, and
exactly
something like that. I think it would have to be a combination of things.
Yep, there are companies out there that are helping. Macy's. We are actually doing a project in a nonprofit I'm involved in called the AT&T Pioneers. We have been giving prom dresses to girls that wouldn't be able to go to the prom, wouldn't be able to afford a dress. So we give them makeup and get their hair styled and give them a nice gown that they get to keep. And that is a warm feeling. And some of those girls come from broken homes or from this close to being on the street. And anything that you can build their self-esteem with is doing the right thing.
Yeah. I can say I don't see a lot of kids or children, as on the streets or in.
Yeah, thank goodness for that. Huh?
Things, yeah, it's
but
more
down
adults.
Skid Row, there's actually an elementary school down there, and they built it there so that the homeless kids would have a close and safe place to go to for school.
Okay. Yeah. And we definitely would like to shout out all of the organizations that help with downtown LA and the homeless communities, because there are a lot of people daily that are putting in work, helping people and stuff down there.
Yeah, I'm on the community advisory board of my local PBS station, and one of the things that we do every year is we have something called the Unsung Heroes Award, and we look for people in the community that have done something like that, or helped vets get off the street, whatever it is to help our communities, and we recognize those people with on-air congratulations, and we have one person who is the main winner who gets I forget if we give them a contribution for their agency or not, but it's a good way to raise awareness for people that don't get any kind of recognition for what they do out there.
Yeah. I don't know any right off the top, but I've seen a few, and I've even went through there and taken a few pictures and stuff like that. But yeah, there are a lot of people that, they change a lot of lives out there by helping those people. They feed the homeless and different things like that. And another, I guess, Mercedes, who is the co-host, she's participated in a lot of those organizations and stuff that help feed the homeless.
It's a good feeling.
Yes.
And there's the LA Food Bank. We go. My organization goes down there at least once a year to fill boxes for folks, and there's so many ways you can be involved in the city.
Yeah, I used to street perform down at 7th and Fig.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed
for about a year and a half. Yeah, and kind of closed out last year, but it was an amazing experience. A lot of as far as a lot of I've basically humbled by a lot of the actions from homeless people, just from them knowing the culture of street performing, and they'd walk by and dig in their pocket and just for whatever, and would put it in the bucket. That they necessarily, clearly they're homeless, but I got that often, and I know it's a warm feeling for me. It was motivating to be able to even just be able to put on a show for a lot of the homeless people that I know that would never probably be able to attend a show.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so
thank you for that.
It was quite the experience. Yes. Thank you. So any ideas that you'd like to share with us about your next book that you have in mind?
Well, I'm trying to decide what to do, really. In 2020, I was, for some reason, publishing a book called The Anthology of California's Best Emerging Poets. I never considered myself a poet, but hey, there's that. And I've written a couple of scripts, and they were they got to quarterfinalist status, which means that you're with the top 1/3 of whoever sent them a script. So nice. That's a good thing too. But always, how does that go? Always a bridesmaid, never a bride.
You go through like a lot of different genres. What's your favorite genre to write in?
What I would like it to be is science fiction, because that's what I grew up on. I went from comic books to real books, sci-fi, and but for the life of me, I'm not very good at it. I've written a couple of time travel things and stuff like that, but that's about it. But the most rewarding is the nonfiction stuff, and that's probably where I'm going to go next. This one was a finalist in something in the UK called the Page Turner Awards. They probably didn't give it to me because there's a lot of typos in here, but but at least they recognize good writing when they see it. So
you do the printing process yourself, as far as hire editors and anything like that that you want to blame for the.
Well, I did have one person look it over, but there's a lot of concepts in there that unless you come from the union movement, you wouldn't know what they were. So I'll take the blame for the way the book turned out. And I've got 2 sequels planned for that, and there really isn't a sequel to the novel because, well, I can't tell you. Anyway, it's
spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
Exactly. But I do have more stories to tell about Morocco. I have one that I'm working on. It's called Moroccan Sunset. Morocco actually means sunset in French. And it's about a guy. He's been living with a woman for 15 years. She is an heir to a shoe fortune, and she dies on the 405 freeway. And so her mother wants him out of that house immediately because it's worth so much money. And then in the meantime, he gets a check that wasn't expected from his lover's lawyer for $2 million. So he says, I promised that next time we went back to Morocco, I was going to rebuild what they call a riad, which is a traditional way of living in Morocco. So he goes there and he finds out that the person he thought he knew was not the person that people in Morocco knew, because she went through some traumatic things while she was there. She went away for a month to grieve her father's death. Mm. And while she was there, she saved a man from drowning, and he later committed suicide because he couldn't, as a Muslim, he couldn't face the fact that his life was saved by a woman.
Oh, man.
And things like that, things that are based on real stuff that happened, but put in the context of fiction, I guess you might say. And but the sequels to this capitalism book are Rebuilding Union, which is, I mean, now is our moment under Joe Biden. We've seen a resurgence in the labor movement, and that's a good thing because people that the millennials seem to know that being in a union is a no-brainer. It's the only way you're going to have any kind of security in your life and be able to have your piece of the American dream. And so the next book after that is called Capitalism Kills the Global Edition. And because I was told when I was writing this one by a friend of mine who's a bigwig at a union in Geneva, Switzerland, that this is America's answer to these problems. It's not the way we're handling in Europe. So the Global Edition compares Morocco, Thailand, if that sounds familiar, I don't know why, France, and I think Canada is the other one. And it shows that it begs the question, are we better off by protect our middle class and treat our middle class right so that we become big in the global market, or it doesn't make any difference at all? So it's an interesting question, and there's all sorts of research that's done by the UN every year about what constitutes a good life.
A good work-life
What they
balance.
say is, if you're free from want, if you don't have to worry about where your next meal is coming from, if you've got a roof over your head, those are all the basics that we should all have.
Yeah. And grateful, be gratitude for them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, before we get ready to close it out, would you like to share with the audience about links to where they can find all of your material?
Sure. There is,
and there'll also be links below in the description that they can click on as well.
Well, thanks.
So.
There's something
or
called,
any projects you have
okay.
going on.
There's a thing called hostingauthors.com/my name, Dan McCrory. And you got to spell it right or it won't work. DANMCCRORY. And it's got a link to my 2 books and talks a little bit about them. But you can go anywhere to buy either book. They're available on the usual places, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all those. And they're I'm looking for reviews. I really need reviews on the books. I've got 13 5-star reviews on this one, and so far I have 3 on this one. So nothing less than a 5 has come in, and I don't know if that's because I threatened them or because they really like me, or maybe my book. I don't know. But they're. I'm really anxious to see what people think of the audio book, because that's a new venture for me, and it's like I was doing a reading in a bookstore last month, and I was reading from this book, and I thought I found a pretty safe passage to read. And all of a sudden, and I had my own little portable speaker that I take everywhere, and all of a sudden you could hear all through the store, "Dick pic." So
I'm sure there was a silence, like, huh?
Yeah.
Did you read your audiobook?
No, I got a professional.
Okay.
And there's a website called acx.com if you are considered doing that.
I think I've heard of that.
You guys have the voices for it.
ACX.
Yeah, you do an audition, a little audition on there, and somebody says, "Oh, I like that voice. I want to use that one for my book," and then you negotiate. You can either get so much paid per hour of reading the book. Mine comes out to almost 5 hours, or excuse me, or you can have enter into an agreement where they get a percentage. And I didn't want to spend $10,000 on this guy, even though he's really great. And he said, "That's okay. I'll take a percentage, and because I think I can win all sorts of awards with this." He was very impressed. He says, "I believe in this book." So
nice.
Yeah. I'll be curious to see what you guys say about it.
We'll definitely have to check out. You said the audio, so that helps with me. I'm more of a listener than as far as a reader.
I understood that most people nowadays don't have time to sit down and read a book most of the time, but they spend a lot of time in their cars.
Yeah, it's some things that I have to read, and some things that it's easier to probably listen to as I move about.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions about capitalism. Are you going to turn that into a audiobook? And I said, no, there's no way. This is almost 400 pages.
Yeah, that'll be a nice read. Yeah. Well, congratulations on the success of your projects as well. The completion. Thank you again for coming in in studio. We always appreciate when people come in and share energy with us in studio. We like to thank our guests, our listeners, my supporters, our donators. Sorry.
And to the podcast, you can find us at AmericanGypC.com. And there you'll find all the episodes, guest information, links to our merch at luamlee.com, and a sample of classics music.
You can find some music under Classic, KLACCIK, CARPENTA. That's on Spotify, iTunes, Tidal, YouTube, all major platforms. Some instrumental cello stuff, some instrumental electronic music under the American Gypsy soundtrack, and we also have some vocal singles that I've released.
What do you think of two cellos?
I'm sorry?
What do you think of two cellos?
Oh, yeah, very, very talented guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really I was wondering. Talented. I've never talked to a cello player, so I had to get that question in. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. They're definitely amazing chemistry that they have together.
Oh, a lot of my stuff, by the way, is on TikTok, so if there's a certain concept in the book that you don't understand or you just want more information, I'm on TikTok, and I think I'm one of just a few writers who are.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Usually people are like, oh, those are something young people use. I didn't
exactly,
know people I like TikTok. Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Dan,
for
being on the podcast and such a genuine conversation. We can always invite you back. We usually say, or when we're on Zoom, if you're ever in LA, but you're here in LA, so
yes, I am.
Definitely like to have you back in the future.
Thanks. I'd be glad to come back.
Yes. Thank you to everyone. Consistent self-improvement and peace.